In this lesson, I want to show you how to create a minimalist ad. What that means is it's really simple. There's not much going on. And I want to show you the spotlight technique as well. So what we're going to do is create this lighting effect that creates a really beautiful background that works great for just about any kind of product. If you look in magazines, you'll see this used behind watches, behind jewelry, behind makeup. And in this case, we're going to use it for technology on the DJI Mavic 2 drone. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start by creating a new document in Photoshop. I'm just going to hit Command N to create that new document. I'm going to click up here across the top tabs on print because I'm going to start with print design. Now the reason why I start with the print file is because you can always scale that down. You need your print files to be larger so they print well. Now web design files are typically small and they're compressed as small as possible so the graphics load faster on web pages. The problem with that is if I tried to print a graphic that was created for the web, it would look blurry and pixelated and look like junk. So what we're going to do is start with a print document, and I'm going to start with this default letter size here, and I want to change this from vertical to horizontal. And then we've got this set up in inches. The resolution is at 300, which is great. Now the color mode, if you've watched some of the other tutorials I've done, if we're doing this for web, we'd want it as RGB. And if we're doing it for print, we'd want it in CMYK. Now, because I'm designing in Photoshop right now, I want all the filters to be available and I want the screen to look just like I want it to be. So I'm going to leave it as RGB for now. And then if it's going to print, you can export it in the CMYK color space. All right, so I'm going to click Create. And I've got my new document here. Now what I want to do is just start bringing in my assets and let's start laying things out. So I'm going to make my background black to begin with. So I'm going to hit the letter D on my keyboard to change this color swatch over here to the default colors. And I'm just going to hit Alt Delete on my keyboard and that throws black into that background. You can also come up here to Edit and fill with the foreground color in that drop down option. Click OK, that'll fill it with black. Perfect. Now let's start gathering our assets. And what we're going for here, if we go to the DJI homepage or to the store homepage, they've got their different sliders that come through. And I really like this dark background that they're working with. Let me step back here a little bit. So what I'm going to do is hit Command Shift and the number 4. And I'm just going to click and drag. And it doesn't need to be this big. I'm going to hold down the Control key and then let go. And by holding down the Control key, what that does is it captures that image that I took a screenshot of to the clipboard versus saving it to the desktop. So if I were to come back here again, hit Command Shift 4, and this time click and drag, and I don't push any buttons, I just let go with the mouse, it's going to take that desktop or throw that image onto my desktop. So if I scroll over here, there's that screenshot that I just took. Okay. So anyway, I still have that screenshot on my desktop, and now I'm going to hit Command V to paste that into my document. And I really don't care about the quality of this. I'm just going to scale it up a little bit. All I really want this for is to sample that color. So I'm going to hit the letter I to get my eyedropper tool. And I'm going to click in here to get that blue color. And I'm actually going to click in the color window over here on the side. If you don't see that, come over to Window, down to Color. And I'm just going to drag this up a little bit. I want it to be a little bit brighter. And now I'm going to turn off the visibility on that layer. I'll save it for later in case I need it. I'm going to add a new layer down here. And with that layer, I'm going to hit the letter L to get my lasso tool. And I'm just going to draw a loose shape. It doesn't have to be perfect at all, just kind of a blob right in the middle there. I'm going to hit Alt Delete to fill that with that blue color that we have in our swatch panel now. And we've got the selection. I'm going to go ahead and hit Command D to deselect that, or you can come up here to select, down to deselect. Okay. Now what we want to do is actually blur this out a little bit to make this look like a soft light. So I'm going to come up here to my filter. And this is where it's important to have RGB versus CMYK, because if you're in CMYK, not all of these filters are available to you. So let's go over here to blur, and we'll come over here to Gaussian blur. I've heard Gaussian, I've heard Gaussian. I think it's Gaussian, whatever. We're going to go with that. And now I can scrub this slider to change how blurry it is. So right now we want it to be not as soft as possible, but very, very soft. And depending on the resolution you started with your file, if you have a web-based file at 72 dpi, you're not going to have to blur this as much. If you're using print, you're going to have to scrub this slider up a lot further. I'll click OK. And now I've got this really soft, subtle spotlight effect. And I can come over here to my opacity and scrub this down a little bit if I wanted to. If I wanted to have it be blending with that background even further or even more. And the other thing we can do with this, let's pretend like, let me just show you a side tangent real quick. I'm going to make a new layer I'm going to fill it with an even lighter blue right now. Hit Alt Delete. Okay. And then I'm going to take this shape that we just made. I'm going to hold down Alt and drag a copy above that blue layer behind it. Now I'm going to click right here. We've got these little icons, and they're lock icons. They lock different character or attributes. Right now I'm going to lock this transparency on this pixel, or lock transparent pixels on this layer. What that means is anything I apply will only affect pixels that are on this layer. Let me show you what I mean. If I switch which color is in front by hitting the letter X, it will swap the foreground to background. So now I've got white on front. I'm going to hit Alt and Delete. And I hit Alt Delete while this layer is selected and this transparency lock is selected. So it only fills the pixels that are there on that layer. Anything that's transparent, it leaves alone. Super quick tip. So now what you could do is change this blend mode to screen, or to overlay, or to soft light. And they're all going to behave a little bit differently, but that's another way to get a true spotlight color on a colored background. But I'm going to turn off these two layers. I just wanted to show you the flexibility of the technique real quick. I chose to actually fill this spotlight with a color because I wanted it to match the DJI graphic exactly. So anyway, I hope that makes sense. So now what we're going to do is start gathering more assets. I'm going to jump over here into Chrome, and I searched for the DJI Logo. Here it is. Okay, and the first one that I click on, it actually had a transparent background here. So all I had to do is click and drag this image over into Photoshop, and it comes up over here. Now it's currently gray, but I want it to be white. And there's a lot of ways that we could go about swapping this, but I'm going to use that trick that I just showed you. Since this came in transparent, I'm going to click on this transparency lock icon, and now just hit Alt Delete because my foreground color is still white, and it just fills that logo with white. So now I'm going to hit Command T, and we're going to scale this down holding down Shift, and we'll stash this logo down here. Okay, just for now. And then I need the picture of the drone. So I'm going to come back over here, and I went to their website, went to the actual drone gallery page here, clicked on the image, it zooms up, and then I can scroll through and find whatever image I want to use. In this case, we're going to use this image right here where it's all folded down, and I'm going to, now I can't click and drag because this gallery, oh, I guess I can, I take that back. If you can't, one of two things, you could hit Command Shift and the number 4 on a Mac, or however you do a screen grab on a PC, and you could grab a screenshot of this thing. I'm going to hit Escape. Or sometimes you can click right click, open image in new tab, and then you'll see the actual full size image inside of your browser window. Now I can either save that into my folder, or I can drag and drop this right into my Photoshop document. Now it's a little bit small, so I'm kind of breaking some rules here as far as scaling this up too big. It might get pixelated. You really want to be careful with that, especially in print production. So now what I got to do is cut this out. I'm just going to do a really quick selection using my, let's see, my quick selection tool. So I hit the letter W, and then I'm going to hit the right bracket key next to the letter P here, and that makes my brush bigger. And I'm just going to click and drag all the way around the outside perimeter of this, and it's selecting all of the white pixels. Okay, and this is going to be a rough selection, and what I mean by that, check this out down here, it kind of breaks, so I can spend some time refining this. I'm going to hold down the Alt key to now reverse that selection to bring back in part of this around the lens here. But again, for the sake of this tutorial not taking forever, we're just going to make a really rough selection. I'm going to hit Command Shift and the letter I to select the inverse. It's the same as coming up here to select down to inverse, and that just flip-flops. So now instead of the white background being selected, I've got the actual drone selected. Okay, and now I'm on this drone layer. I'm gonna hit Command J to jump cut that selection into a new layer. So that was Command J. I'll turn off this background layer that we were working with, and now my drone is cut out. Now I could have used a mask, and sometimes a mask is better because it's non-destructive. And what I mean by that, let me show you real quick. Let's step back a couple here. Click on there. There we go. All right, so I've got that selection, and I'm down on this original layer that has the white background. I could click down here on this layer mask icon, and now all of that data is there, and I could work in the mask to paint with white or black to either, and I've got a grunge brush selected. Let me change that to something else here. All right. And I could either paint away with black as my foreground color on the mask to hide more detail. So if I've got stuff that I forgot, like over here, this should be knocked out, I can paint that in. Or I can hit the letter X if I go too far, and I could reverse that and bring it back. So if I took too much away, I can reverse that selection. So sometimes working with masks are definitely the way to go. In this case, I'm just trying to get this thing done fast. So I'm going to hide this original layer and just use the selection that we brought up here. And anytime you're making selections, definitely double check your work. Like in this case, we've got this white poking through. This actually doesn't belong here. So I'm going to get my magic wand tool because I found it works better in these small spots instead of this quick selection tool. And my tolerance is set to 15 right now, which is it's just how sensitive it is to selection. If it was set to 1, it would hardly select anything other than those pixels. See, it even misses some unless it's exactly that same color as what I selected. If I bump it up to 20, it's going to be more tolerant of the colors next to it, and it'll do a better job of feathering that selection. So I'm just going to click a few times in here to kind of select that and hit delete to delete that from my selection. All right, so we've got our drone looking good here. I'm just going to scale it up a touch. Okay, and now we need our text. So a couple things we can do. First, I'm going to just go ahead and bring over, let's see. So I had that screenshot that I brought over just to kind of see what I was working with, but I have this really cool plugin called WhatFont, and it works with Chrome. I think it works with Safari and Firefox. I don't know, but it's called WhatFont. And what you can do is, let's go back to that store page that this was on here. I can click on what font, and then I can click anywhere in this design, and it will tell me what fonts this website is using, which is awesome. It tells you the size, the color, all those kinds of things, which is really handy. So they're using Open Sans for their branding on the website. Now on that banner, it's not, Open Sans isn't a perfect match, but this will get me close to the branding they've already set in motion. So what I'm going to do is come over here, and for the sake of this going faster, I'm just going to bring over this text that I just did in the other one. Okay, so I just typed out Mavic 2, with my text tool, and then I made Open Sans the font. If you don't see that, you can get it from Adobe Typekit or download it from Google. Okay, so I threw some text in there, just made Mavic 2, and then I copied and pasted the future of aerial photography. And you'll see that these are both just regular Open Sans, nothing fancy going on here, and I've got them lined up pretty close to each other here. It's not perfect, but whatever, it gets the job done. And then visually, I kind of have this a little bit centered and kind of in line here with this lens from the drone. Okay, and then now that this text is coming into place, it kind of feels awkward that this logo is this big and down here. I like that it's lined up to the right side of this drone, but I feel like maybe it should come back over here. And this is where, as a designer, it's a little bit subjective for you to place things wherever you want. Now, visually, what I'm looking at right now, I'm just going to draw a rectangle so you can see it. I'm going to make it a weird color. All right. What are we doing here? There we go. Bright green so we can see it. Now I'm just going to draw a rectangle here because I want you to see the spacing that visually that I'm thinking. All right. So I've got that much space on this side, and I kind of want this to feel balanced. So I could either scoot this over so they kind of have the same margin on the edges here, but I just want this to kind of feel like spacing visually matches. So I can click on these guys and kind of nudge them into place. Okay, I'm just getting it close. I'm not trying to get too perfect with it yet. We'll bring this down a little bit so visually it's more centered on the page. Okay, nudging these things down, and that's pretty much in place. And the only other thing that maybe you would add to this, we could add a drop shadow. So click down here on effects, we'll go to drop shadow, and now I've got a nice soft drop shadow behind this. And you can actually, with this dialog box over to the side, I can click on the shadow and drag it around wherever I want it to be, so you can kind of manually force it to fall wherever it looks good to you. Maybe make it adjust your size, adjust your opacity so it's not super dark, right? We just want this to be a subtle effect. This is, again, a minimalist design. So that's pretty much it. So again, you could easily replace this with a watch or with jewelry or anything like that. And I hope that was helpful. I know it's really basic at this point. Just make sure you save your document and you should be good to go. All right, that's pretty much it for this lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit that little bell, that little notification bell, so when I go live on YouTube, you'll get notified, as well as when I post new tutorials. Thanks for watching, and please let me know if you enjoyed this, what you're going through, how it's going for you, what you want to learn next, so I can continue to make more tutorials. All right, thanks guys. We'll catch you later.